A shooting incident outside an In-N-Out burger restaurant.
A deadly shooting spree outside of an In-N-Out burger in Idaho.
A shooting at In-N-Out on Saturday.
Active shooter situation near the In-N-Out burger restaurant.
Shooting at an In-N-Out.
Active shooter incident at an In-N-Out in Twin Falls.
Shooting in Twin Falls.
Mass shooting at an In-N-Out burger.
Mass shooting at an In-N-Out burger in Twin Falls, Idaho.
Police in Idaho are hailing two people as heroes.
Austin James's dad told me tonight he doesn't want any praise or attention, but people across the country tonight are calling him a hero. Austin Scott James, you see him there on the left, is originally from Sacramento County. His dad, Marcus James, on the right, also worked with the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office and has since retired. According to Austin's family, he jumped right into action at that shooting scene Saturday.
Austin James graduated from Antelope High School in 2013. He was in the drive-thru with his wife Saturday when they heard those gunshots. He ran towards the gunman who shot him in the arm. Austin's wife, an ER nurse, got him to a hospital.
When Austin heard the gunshots, he got out of his car to go find out what was going on. Of course, like a law enforcement officer would do, go toward the shots. Austin essentially walked around the corner, came face to face with the guy, and that's when the guy shot him. He didn't even have time to pull his weapon. And when he got shot, then he retreated to cover. And apparently the guy spent some time looking for Austin, which obviously delayed his reaction to going after other people.
They say they're very proud of Austin and they're grateful that he's alive.
Police have identified the off-duty trooper involved in the Twin Falls shooting. Specialist Steve McLean was inside the In-N-Out restaurant on August 1st when the gunman, Chad Williams, started shooting. McLean helped evacuate employees and customers from the store during the incident.
And in Twin Falls, Idaho police are identifying the trooper who got involved in that deadly In-N-Out shooting. Idaho State Police say Specialist Steve McLean was off duty during the shooting, but he rushed in to protect employees. Specialist McLean said he simply did what he believed needed to be done.
And a bystander is now being credited for helping stop the man police say opened fire.
We can confirm that there was an off-duty state trooper and a citizen who actively engaged the suspect by returning gunfire.
And thankfully, an off-duty state trooper and an armed citizen were exchanging gunfire with the suspect. They reportedly drove the suspect away from the scene.
What we do know is that two people tried to stop the shooting as it happened.
In another, it appears a man shoots at the suspect before ducking from return fire.
He saw this man in the In-N-Out drive-thru with a handgun start firing at the shooter.
They were both running around trying to dodge bullets, it looked like.
We believe their actions helped drive the suspect away from the scene, preventing further casualties.
The civilian, identified by local media as 35-year-old Jordan Salinas.
What we're learning is a Jordan Salinas, a bystander who drew his own weapon on the suspect.
That Good Samaritan, identified by the Idaho Statesman as 35-year-old Jordan Salinas.
The other citizen is Jordan Salinas.
Jordan Salinas ran toward a rifle with a handgun and felt no fear.
That's what we're trying to do.
This is the real Jordan Salinas. This right here is the real Jordan Salinas. Do you hear me?
Jordan Salinas, we have to give him a shout out because in a world where we never give the heroes any credit, no major media networks are going to talk about him. This guy's 35 years old. He's a healthcare worker, full-time caregiver of his brother who's in a wheelchair. By the way, this is his Facebook post, guys, from 2 years prior. Look at what he writes at the end. He says, train like your life depends on it because God forbid one day it might. Stay free, stay safe, and stay frosty.
Let's talk about what happened. Before I say anything about what happened that day, I just want to start by remembering the people who grace this planet with their presence. Ashley Garibay, Christopher Claunch, and Dale Schultz. Those are more than just names connected to a tragic event. They were daughters, sons, family members, friends, co-workers, and people who mattered deeply to those around them. They have passed on, and no matter what else is said about that day, I don't want that to be forgotten. My heart goes out to their families and everyone that knew and loved them. And I also want to acknowledge everyone who was wounded that day. And I sincerely hope they continue to recover, both physically and emotionally, and that they and their families are given the time, privacy, and all the support that they need. There's so many other people who were affected by what happened. Customers, employees, first responders, law enforcement, medical personnel, witnesses, and people who may have never physically been inside the building or there that day, but were still deeply affected by what happened. I've been quiet about this for a reason, and that is that I've needed some time to process everything, and I've wanted to be respectful of the victims, their families, the people who were injured. Before I talk about anything that I did that day, I want to make sure that those who have passed on are remembered. I'm going to share my experience because I was there, and because there are things that I can speak to firsthand, but I'm not here to glorify what happened, and I'm not here to portray myself as some kind of hero. I can only tell you what I saw, what I experienced, and what I remember. This isn't a story about what I did. It's a story about what happened to a community, and I'm just one person who happened to be there. So, with all that said, this is my account of what happened that day. want to start by giving a little context for why I'm speaking about this now. For the first few weeks after that day, there was a lot of information coming out. News reports, social media posts, videos, speculation, and understandably a lot of questions. I've watched some of that from the sidelines, and I've seen some things that were accurate, things that weren't, and things that were simply people trying to make sense of something that was incredibly difficult to understand. It's difficult to make sense of something that's so senseless. I've also seen a lot of attention directed towards me and towards what I did that day, and I sincerely appreciate the support, and I appreciate the kind words, but honestly, that's never been the part of this that has mattered most to me. I was there. I experienced what happened. And I made decisions in a situation that unfolded in seconds. And I'm not going to pretend that I had some perfectly thought out plan or contingency, because I didn't. I wasn't expecting that when I walked into In-N-Out that day that anything was going to happen like it did. I was just a person who found himself in an extremely serious situation and made the decisions that I felt I needed to make at that time. There's also things I'm not going to speculate on. If I didn't see something myself, I'm not going to present it as fact. If I don't know something, I'll tell you I don't know. And there are some details that I may not be able to discuss at all, either because they're part of an ongoing investigation or because I don't believe sharing them serves any useful purpose. What I can talk about is what I personally experienced. I'll walk through what I remember from the beginning, from what I saw, what I understood at the time, and how things unfolded from my perspective. Some of it may be difficult to hear. Some of it may not line up perfectly with what you've heard elsewhere. And there may be details that I remember differently than someone else who was nearby. That's just one of the realities of an event like this. But I'm going to do my best to tell it honestly, respectfully, and without embellishing it, because at the end of the day, this isn't entertainment. 3 people have moved on from this planet, and others were injured, and a lot of people went through something that they should never have had to experience. And that's something I don't want lost underneath all the attention surrounding the people who survived. So, with that in mind, I'll start at the beginning and tell you what I remember and what I experienced. I woke up that day like any other day. No thought in my mind that it was going to be any different. I was looking forward to petting some horses, getting away from the city, and just being out in the desert. We decided to grab some lunch on the way out of town, and the obvious choice was In-N-Out. As we pulled into the adjacent parking lot across the street, that's when I saw everybody running out of the building and across the parking lot. And I could tell from the fear in their faces that this wasn't a fire, that it was something else. And before I had time to even ask what was going on, that's when I heard the rifle. And it's a very, very distinct sound. So, without a word, without a thought, I ran across the street and made my way to the first In-N-Out sign nearest the road. And I used that as concealment so that I could try to get eyes on the situation, because in that kind of panic and chaos, you don't know what the situation really is. And a gentleman who was exiting his vehicle from the drive-through was running towards me And I asked him what was going on, and he told me active shooter. So I asked him, what's he look like? What's he wearing? But he kept running. So I didn't know who I was looking for, but I had an indication of what was going on. And even in that moment, there was still a lot of uncertainty, because it could have been a dispute between two parties. It could have been gang activity. It could have been an active shooter. It could have been two active shooters. It could have been terrorist related. I had no way to know. So I held that spot for maybe 15, 20 seconds, and I heard the rifle again, and that gave me a pretty good indication on where the fire was coming from. So when I had that information, that's when I moved to the second in and out sign. And I peeked around the side of that sign, and that's when I saw him. And to be honest, he looked like a teenager. He looked like some kid. But I saw him begin firing at cars at the intersection, and I knew that was him. So I drew my weapon and leveled my sights on him. Checked my backstop. Took the safety off and proceeded to engage him. The first shot, he flinched. A pretty hard flinch. And immediately began moving the opposite direction of me. And I continued to engage him. After about 4 shots, I experienced a malfunction, so I proceeded to clear that, make the gun operational, and I peeked back out. He was still moving away from me. I fired maybe another 4 shots, and at that point, the direction of travel that he was taking shifted my backstop to the vehicles in the parking lot, and I knew that I couldn't take any more shots at him. So that's when I left that position and advanced into the foliage, the shrubs, landscaping that was seen in the video that has been circulating, and that realigned my backstop to a dumpster, and I continued to engage with the shooter. Once he reached the Teslas that were parked, and I no longer had a visual, that's when I began to utilize what little concealment I did have, and I would observe from one position for maybe 5 seconds, then I would move to another position, observe for another 5 seconds, and I did that a handful of times, just trying to get eyes on where he was at and what his next move might be. After about 30 seconds, I still did not have a visual on him, so I moved back to the second in and out sign where I initially engaged him, my thought being that maybe he was going to try to get on the road or on the bridge. So I held that position for maybe 15, 20 seconds. And in that spot is where I heard the sirens. And I looked over my shoulder and I saw the blue lights. And that's when I knew that my part of this was over. So I reholstered my weapon and fell back to the drive-through line. I hooked around the building through the parking lot and made my way towards where the officers were arriving, and I directed them to the last known vicinity that the suspect was in. I gave them a description and they set off. So at that point, I went back to the In-N-Out and proceeded to assist with the victims that were on scene. Assessing their wounds, seeking any medical supplies that the officers in the vicinity may have had, and did what I could to help those who were wounded. after that, I guess I was probably still in some kind of shock or disbelief, because I was beside myself. I didn't know exactly what my next step should be in that kind of chaos. So I just tried to be an asset to anyone that was around me. And that's about it.